Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the Thomas FreeMe Show. Once again, I thank you for tuning in. Before you start the show, please, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff, as it is the utmost importance to the growth of my show and getting my word out there. Please make sure to visit www.cominghomecoalition.com, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that has been founded by me for the people, for the community. And I am trying to stay privately funded so that it allows me to work within the community the way that I need to work. So please make sure to visit that. And there's all kinds of links and ways that you can subscribe, donate, and make sure to please visit what we're doing here in Pasco County called Project Inside Out with Shady Hills Mission Chapel. So please visit www.cominghomecoalition.com. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and please make sure to check out my book on Amazon, The Power of a Positive Mindset, for those who have an incarcerated loved one who just needs to change their mindset. You can find that on Amazon by simply just Googling Thomas FreeMe. Thank you, and please enjoy the show. Welcome back, everybody, man. Glad to have you back. Glad to be back. If you know or you do not know, you know I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Coming Home Coalition. And I've really been trying to work on getting this nonprofit established in a county that does not want me. So it's understanding that this is a very corrupt county, Pasco County, Florida. Corrupt commissioners, community developers, they lie to the public. All dealing with the homelessness and addiction here in this county is horrific. They're not doing anything about it. And of course, I grew up in this county. I've committed my own crimes. If you guys know or don't know, I've served quite a few years in prison, incarcerated. I was incarcerated for conspiracy. I took the federal government to trial. Everything going on with the federal government here in government. So, everything going on with the federal government here in America. I took the federal government to trial. I know that they're corrupt. I know the game that they play. My trial was about a week and a half. They had no evidence on me whatsoever other than witnesses who were willing to cooperate because they were trying to get time off their own sentence. But these are honest people. So they used these people to testify against me, and I was found guilty with no proof. They found no cocaine. They found no money. They had no audio. They had no video. They had absolutely nothing on me other than a bunch of other people who had got busted and wanted to tell on everybody. And these are outstanding witnesses, right? Completely honest witnesses, as the prosecutor said it in the courtroom. So I was found guilty of that through a sham trial, a corrupt trial, and I just know how the federal government operates. So with that being said, I'm not very liked in this county now that I've come back and I want to try to create my own nonprofit dealing with addiction and homelessness and things of that nature, and just try to right my own wrongs that I've done in this county alone. That's my sole purpose of establishing this nonprofit in this area, that I affected personally. A lot of individuals, they get out of prison, sure, and they'll start their own nonprofit, and they do it in a place that nobody knows who they are. They go somewhere new and start their life over and things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, for me, it didn't make sense that I would go somewhere else and help out a community that I had no part in destroying when there's a community that I personally helped destroy that I could be helping. So it's all of that led into today's conversation, I guess you could say, because within that, I read a book. A book came to me. We'll talk a little bit about that in the show. But a book came to me called Frequency, and Frequency gave me a whole new perspective on myself, on life, what happens in life, what's been going on with me since I was a child, of things that I just didn't understand. And Frequency just kind of woke me up to that, and not only did it wake me up to that, but it taught me how to utilize that, which is so important as well, because sure, we get woke up to stuff, but there hardly ever do we get told how to use this stuff that we were woke up to. It just gives us the information, and we realize what's going on, but then we don't know what the hell to do. So Frequency is an awesome book, man. Awesome book. It transitioned my life, started me on a journey. It gave me direction. I knew where to go from there. So when I got out and I started my podcast, I knew that I needed a guest. And I'm like, well, what's the first guest that I would have on my show? And Frequency came to mind. I opened the book and I looked and I found Miss Penney's website, and her email was on her website, and I emailed her and she responded that she'd love to come on the show, and we did our first show and she loved it. She loved the premise of the show. She loved how I run my show. And it's just open, flat discussion based upon experiences in life. It's not really a Q&A show. It's just two human beings who are experiencing many different facets coming together and sharing those experiences. And that's what we've done. And now this will be our fourth show. She loves coming on the show, and she loves the general talk. And this show, I believe, was our greatest, thus far, simply because we're getting into now just the everyday structures of life, everyday life, human life, and the premise of today's show is about what I call dark energy. Miss Penney clarifies it and goes into depth about what that really is as far as low frequency. But, for me and most of society who's not in tune with frequencies understand dark energy, right? We understand what that is. Energy within people that just brings out the darkness of those individuals, particularly narcissism. So, the whole topic of today's discussion was really about how to spot this low frequency, dark energy within individuals before you yourself as the human intertwine your life, your purpose with this human being, only to find out years later that you've been entrapped in a situation that now, because you're emotionally tied, is very hard for you to get out. So it's knowing that there is low frequency individuals out there, and it's spotting them out of the gate before you're emotionally tied to this individual. Just seeing these red flags, seeing this low frequency, dark energy within this person, and steering clear of them before it's too late. So that's a lot of what we talk about today. We delve into other topics, slightly touch on politics, but Ms. Penney is not one to speak on politics, and I'm not one to really bring politics into the show unless the show is about politics, because I know it makes people uncomfortable. We're in pernicious times, and these decisions being made today in America is going to outline the future of what America is. We're still a growing nation. We're still the youngest nation in the world. We're still growing. We're still fighting for sovereignty, and so today's times is affecting everybody. And as you hear Ms. Penney say in the interview, it's hard to get away from politics. So we briefly touch on that. We give slight different viewpoints on different things. I give a perspective and Miss Penney gives a perspective, and you have two different perspectives coming out of this conversation, which again is another great thing, because I'm a firm believer that in order to know the whole truth, you have to hear both sides of the story. You have to know the whole picture of what is going on in order to find the truth for yourself. And if you're only stuck on one side of the page and you're not reading the other page, then you're not getting the whole book. You're only getting half the book, And of course, you can form your own speculations and your own opinions out of a half a book. But are they factual? Are they genuine? Because you have not read the whole book. So it's knowing that these are very pernicious times. These are times that humans must be paying attention, and you must be hearing both sides of the story, and make sure that you're researching everything on all sides of the aisle so that you are making an informative decision. We as America, as a collective, are making informative decisions, and we're voting responsibly and not emotionally. So we delve into a little bit of that, the energy behind politics and things of that nature. And we also get into the afterlife. So, you have to be a firm believer in the soul. You have to be a firm believer in reincarnation. You have to be a firm believer that there is a spiritual realm and that we're not just mold moving around aimlessly. That there's a higher purpose to our function here on Earth. And that'll be it. I'll let you guys get into it. But I do want to say, I greatly appreciate the fact that I have Penney Peirce on my show. World-renowned clairvoyant. Worked with the federal government, worked with all kinds of agencies in clairvoyancy, has many books out, just such an accomplished human being, but so in touch with herself. It's a revelation for me. It grounds me. It brings me back to my center. And to have that capability to come on my show is just beyond words for me. I don't know how to show appreciation in that, other than just try to describe this human being and how much I appreciate this human being, in my own words. But this human being, because of her work, her thought process, changed my life, my thought process, and opened my mind to learn a whole new world, right? One that makes sense to me, because I was walking around aimlessly, not understanding what was happening, playing victim. And that's the thing, is that when we don't understand what's going on, we start blaming other people. And we start blaming other things. And next thing you know, you fall into victimhood. And then everything is everybody else's fault. And that was my life. Just walking around doing things carelessly and thoughtlessly. And then just blaming other people. And Miss Penney Peirce, amongst other things. But she was a great influence in making me realize the accountability for myself, by introducing me to my energy field and understanding that I am putting out my crooked thoughts, my dark energy, and the world is responding to what I'm putting out. So if I want the world to respond to me differently, I have to put out differently, which means I have to think differently, which means that whatever is producing these thoughts has to come from a place of purity. Right? And it's understanding that that place of purity is created by the energy that you put into that purification. So you want to have high energy. You want to have a high frequency. So that high frequency is creating high frequency thoughts. And then those thoughts are being manifested into actions. And now you're out here doing high frequency things. Right? And what else can I say after that? So please enjoy the show. This is a great conversation, very deep. It does run longer than an hour. It runs about an hour and 30 some odd minutes, if I remember correctly. So that's why I don't want to take up too much of your time here. But you guys, please pay attention, right? Don't listen to the show. Like, this is one of those movies where you have to pay attention to every word, because we delve into some deep stuff, and I don't want you to get lost in the conversation and miss out of some of the things that we're trying to get to, because this will change your life. I'm example of that. I don't know how else to put it. I'm a prime example of the fact that this will change your life. If you're in a negative state, if negative things are happening to you, you may be incarcerated, you may be out here doing bad things, bad people may be doing things to you, you may be in a narcissistic relationship. Who knows what kind of negative, low frequency situation you're in? But I promise you, if you pay attention to this episode and hear what it is that Miss Penney and I are discussing, and you start applying these things to your life will improve. That's one promise that you'll get from Thomas FreeMe. So please enjoy the show. Take care. I love you. And I will have another episode coming out shortly. Peace.
Energetic and happy, and went walking every day. I felt really physical. And then
Awesome.
I got back here, and it's like the humidity is like 80%, and matches the temperature even, and I just could barely, and I started having dizzy spells again. So it was, I don't know what all that means, but it was sure a marked difference. So
because the reason why I'm inquiring is because my sinuses have been killing me my whole life. I have a constant drain, constant pressure, and I've really been thinking about trying to get away maybe from this humidity.
Getting an Airbnb or renting a place for a couple of months or a month in the summer or something, and just going somewhere and seeing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I go to Switzerland.
When do you go to Switzerland, or why?
So I've been to Switzerland twice now, and I go I how it originated is I met with a family of an incarcerated individual who's innocent in prison, been innocent in prison for 40 years. And if you remember, I was doing, case reviews and things like that. And just got close with the family. And a portion of the family lives out in Switzerland. So the first year they flew me out there for a couple of weeks. It's an elderly woman who stays by herself and has a farm or whatnot. So I went out there for 2 weeks and helped her with the farm. The name of the place is Menziken. Menziken, Switzerland, which is a very small country town. A whole different thought process, a way of life. Well, it is. It's like a central meeting point. And you're absolutely correct, because Switzerland is kind of in quadrants. So when you get over to the French side, then it's more French influenced, and German, and then Italian. So there was one particular moment in time where I'm sitting at a table at this place in this town called Rheinach, and the table itself is older than America, right? And we're sitting at this table, and I'm having this conversation with a German soldier, right? A Polish soldier, a Switzerland soldier, and then a Russian immigrant, right? And we're all sitting here and we're talking politics. We're talking about, America, and we're talking about the birth of Switzerland and how it came to be. And it was just such a wealth of one knowledge, but for me, I just can't even put in words the feeling of being amongst that. Again, I'm at a table that's older than America.
Yeah.
And it's just the energy, as we get into this discussion, it's just the energy that comes from these things of people, the DNA that's settled into this table over hundreds and hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah.
And,
right.
And just these
all
people who have come, all the conversations that are within this table that expound, hundreds of years.
Oh, wow. No, you got to do something with this, because the whole idea of the table being older than America and all this gathering and coming together in a country that is made for that to begin with,
Exactly.
And neutral.
Exactly.
That.
And we got into, because I recorded of this as much as I possibly could. But of course, you being the worldly person that you are, you understand that me being an American, going to a place where you start to understand Americans really are not liked like what we're told we are. And my whole life, I was led to believe that, we're American. I can go anywhere in the world and, people are going to circle me and like, oh, look at the American, and women are going to flock all over me. And, oh, he's American. Oh, we love him. And they're going to, boast me up on their shoulders and around their town. And this is what was in my mind. And I think that might be what's in the mind of a lot of Americans when they travel abroad for the first time. Because as you hear these individuals speaking about Americans, you start to realize that we're not very liked. And the reason why is because of our ego, our brashness, our, hey,
Yeah.
I'm an American.
Entitlement.
The
You know,
entitlement of being
I told
American.
people I was from Britain, from the UK, when I your country, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right. And so me coming into now this small town that is not under any American influence whatsoever. There's not it's not like it's Zurich, where it's heavily tourist and things like that. This is a small town, country people of like 450 people. You have one doctor, and that doctor's been a family, and that family's been doctors for, you know what I mean? This is true culture. You
Mm.
have one veterinarian, and that vet. So it's just
Yeah.
this small town. So now, when the first time I go into this pub, right, as I walk in, you can automatically feel the the tension, the unwelcomeness. Nobody said hi, nobody greets you, you know. But it's Ollie's pub in Rhinock. Ollie is a true bartender, right? He's the quintessential bartender as to like what you would think as a true bartender. He was a bartender. His father was a bartender. His grandfather was a bartender. And Ollie's dream was to have his own bar. And he had it. This was Ollie's pub. So, Ollie was the bartender. So him being this bartender in his establishment knew to welcome me, and he could feel the tension in the room as well. Because I'm in there. I'm in my big leather coat, and all of this stuff, and I'm the American, and everybody in the room knows it. So now I'm here for 2 weeks, and this is my first night into the pub. So I just go and I mind my own business because again, I'm experienced. I'm the human being that I am, and I respect the nature of what's going on because I understand
Mm.
why this is happening. Right. And I know how to, like we were just discussing, to play my role within this environment because, I have to show these people that I'm not what you think that I am. So I go and I just mind my own business. I'm sitting there and I sat at the bar for 3 hours, just had my drinks, didn't talk to nobody, didn't say nothing to nobody. Ollie would come over and we would have a few conversations here or there. And that was it. And I came in the next night and the same thing occurred. But towards the end of the second night, I was watching that these guys had this dice game that they play for drinks. And it's something that they created in this town. It's like a little octagon board with a felt on it, and there's 3 dice, and they play this game. And Ollie brought the board over to me and taught me this game, which I happened to catch. I recorded the whole thing and put on TikTok of me learning this game and Ollie teaching me this. So I learned the game and I ended up beating Ollie 2 out of 3 games for drinks. And and as we were playing, I started noticing some of the other room was watching us now. They were more curious of this and that. So that was the second night. The third night I come in, Ollie actually invites me to the table now, the main table, with the guys at the table. Now I'm off to the side still, and he's sitting with me, but we're playing. But now the other guys are just, I'm at the table, the metaphoric at the table.
Well, they got a feel for you. They
And,
read
and
you.
they read me.
Yeah, and they did it slowly and waited, and that's the way, that's the way it always.
That's the natural order of life.
Right. And dogs, you watch them. When I had to board my dog while I was gone, it surprisingly there were going to be 3 other dogs boarded with her at the same time, and I'm like, what? And then she's little, and they're bigger. So I brought her in, and they one by one she brought the big dogs out, and they're like a year and a half old, so they're boing 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 all over the place. And the first one came over to her all excited, and she just turned and gave him a big rat, and he back, and then he came around, and pretty soon they just calmed down and smelled each other. And then the next one came in, same thing. And then she sent me pictures that they're sleeping together, they're like buddy buddy. And so, it was a pack thing in a way too. They all got mixed up, and her own dog is an old beagle who is very aloof, and my dog's a little bit, aloof. So they got along a little bit, but at the end, after 10 days, she sent me a video of them actually playing together, like getting down and then jumping, and then they stop and then they play, and like that. Totally friends. But I think we learn a lot from animals and the way they get to know each other.
It's the natural order of things.
It is the natural order. Yeah.
And we're going through the same thing. No, but I've met a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Her name is Candy.
Uh-huh.
And we've intertwined in such a way, the way that I wanted to intertwine with somebody. I mean, from first contact, we just haven't stopped, and from the very first contact, it was like we've known each other for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And so that's who life has directed my way. And the amazing thing, I was thinking about this earlier as we were getting into this, right? As I knew that the show was coming up. You have been with me, Miss Penney, from the very moment that I've came home, from the very moment that, I decided to have my first guest, and I reached out, and your book Frequency was such a transitional book for me inside. And from that show, and then the second show that we had, I was explaining to you the toxic relationship I was in, and the darkness, and the depression that I was in, and everything. And then, we went into the third show about the dreams, and now we're here, and you have witnessed really just my coming home from 13 years of incarceration, growth.
Yeah.
And you have been such a big, huge part of who I am today. And just, I was thinking about that this morning, and it was just amazing to me how life just is, as we're speaking about the natural order of things. And so I say all that to say, first time, of course, she bumped heads with every dog in the house, and now the little dogs know to respect her. So, but her and Zeus, the shepherd, they have like this love-hate relationship. But it's just, as we're talking about the natural order, and I want to get back into, breaking the ice here, but all of that, like you say, revolves around animals, because at the end of the day, we are no different from animals. The only thing that differentiates us is our consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, I have learned that I can see my darker side through animal traits, right? And I also told my daughter, like, if you want to know what kind of parent you are, because I know there's a lot of women out there who, a lot of their worries and concern is, am I going to be a good mom? Mm. And I think that a lot of that you can determine from how you raise pets. Are your pets wild? Do you have wild animals that run the house and run amok? Or do you have control of your pets? Do they have order? Is there, does that dog know that it's a dog, or however?
Yeah, I still love Cesar Millan and what he does, because he works with energy. And and he shows the dog who's the pack leader, and they need that. If they baby them, then they become protective and violent toward other people.
Right.
And I've watched him, that people will reward their dog, like they're barking at somebody at the front door, and then they get them to stop, and then they come, oh, good boy, you're good now. Except that the dog associates that with the barking.
Right.
So then it rewards them for the wrong thing. And then they can't break them of the habit,
That's right.
And it's all common sense. And it's all, if you come in a room and fill it with your energy and take up space with your energy, the dog won't go in that amount. You know, if they're like the barking at the front door, I go and I fill it up the hallway with my energy and push her to the end of it, and she stops there. You know, but people don't know. I guess that when you read animals, you can. I grew up with them, you know, so you can feel when they're upset, when they're on an
trying to compensate for that by doing what it does, you know, and so it's knowing we can communicate with anything, any living thing, if we're in tune with that energy field.
Yeah. And I've noticed, because I've just had this dog for 3 months now, getting to know her. She was adopted from an old woman who was going blind. And she was very sad in the beginning. It's taken almost this amount of time for her to get with me, and also for her personality to start to come out again. But what I've noticed is that I read her. I know when if she goes out on her coyote stake on the back, and that she's ready to come in. I know it, and I say, "Are you ready to come in?" And she, yes. And then she appreciates me reading her mind and taking the action that the way a dog would, you know. And now she's kind of reciprocating, you know. So, and then she's learning things faster that way too. I think it's fascinating. You know, they are very sensitive to energy and thought energy and emotional energy. You know, they read it.
And I think that's a good segue back into the story, because that is exactly what they were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were reading the energy. They were seeing where I was coming from, how I maintain myself, the respect, value, things of that nature. Because these are, again, are men of men, and men respect men.
Mm-hmm.
So they were waiting to see what I was going to put out before they reciprocated anything back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once I got to the table and I was at the table and they saw my respect, value, especially for the place, and then once Ollie explained the table itself, the story and the history, you know, and of course I'm a history buff, my awe and my question asking and my true inquiries, you know, it was true and honest, you know, it was sincere, and of course that can be picked up, that energy can be picked up. And so, you know, to finish off, by the end of my 2 weeks, you know, because I went there just this past New Year's last year. So I went there for Christmas time and New Year's. And by the time New Year's came, I have this on TikTok as well. I'm there with the whole place. You know, now when I'm walking through the door, the whole place greets me. Hey, Thomas. And, but, you know, hey, the American. And, you know, they love me. I'm buying shots. They're buying shots. We're all, you know, we're partying. We're counting down New Year's. And it was like I grew up in the town now. And next time I go, I know without a doubt when I step into that pub, they're all going to remember who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and vice versa. Absolutely. No question. And that respect will be there. The fact that you remember somebody's name, you know, or such. And
yeah,
that kind of evolves us into today's discussion.
Yeah.
And as always, we just take off, you know, we just take off. But I really wanted to revolve this discussion around dark energy in people. And, you know, as I'm sure you know, we see, you know, America is filled with narcissism, you know, big egos, big, you know, I know everything, even though I've never read a book in my life, you know, and all of this stuff. And we, particularly empaths, can fall victim to these narcissists very, very easily, as I have. And of course, it takes years to recognize that you're entrapped into this thing now.
Yeah. I think it's important to actually understand what narcissism is, because I was in the same, I fell for it in other people. And because they look so perfect and they're so often, they are really good at a lot of things. You know, they're sexy, they're handsome, they're beautiful, they're they have money, or they whatever, skillful and all this stuff. It's kind of mesmerizing. But that's the thing, because usually they begin life abandoned in some way. And there's this great fear, like, I'm alone. So that means then the mind goes, the left brain, of course, goes, well, then I'll just have to do the world. I'll just have to kind of control things. And so they figure out how they need to be able to be accepted and so-called loved, but to be safe, basically. And then they need the outside world to agree with their inside world. And a lot of energy goes into controlling how the outside world behaves around you. So they need a lot of positive attention. They can't handle criticism, because then that's a disagreement with the outside world. And so then they have to use a methodology to cajole, charm, or resort to intimidation in order to get people back in line. So they're very comfortable playing the dominator and the fabulous, perfect person, or the victim,
right?
Which is just the flip side of, and you watch certain leaders where they go, I know everything, and then, oh no, they're all doing it to me.
Right.
And they still get attention from that.
And I want to, because I know I don't want to bring politics into the conversation, because I know,
but we can find it wherever we look,
You can find it wherever we look. And right now, this is the most, I would say, pernicious time in American history.
Yes.
Right. We have a very important election coming up. And my important thing is, at this time, is just for people to make choices and decisions based upon their own knowledge, right? Choose who you choose, but do it according to what you have researched and found out for yourself and made your own choice, not based upon anything other than that. Now, with that being said, your depiction of narcissism, which I 100% agree with, the first person that comes to my mind is Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump is for me the ultimate depiction of what a narcissist is.
Yeah.
And as I've said many times, corporations breed narcissism, especially when you get into those heavy leadership roles, CEOs, vice presidents, Elon Musk's, these things.
Yeah. And that's why they get there too, because they are talented and they do have this desire to control. But what happens with narcissists, let me finish this little scenario, because I think it's interesting to watch, is that they can flip-flop between dominating and victimization like that.
Instantly.
And they can charm, and if you watch their speech patterns and the way they modulate language, they know how to read the way people are receiving them. And so, but if the outside world starts to disagree with their construction, of how they thought it should be, they will go ballistic. Mm-hmm. And you'll watch them and they will just flatten people, and without 1 second's remorse or thought of it. It's just, they'll get rid of them out of their reality, whether that means just rejecting you from their group or going on the hunt to, for retribution and all that. And they don't understand what love is. They think love means agreement. You agree with me, okay, now I'm safe. But they don't really get what love is, and you think they're loving you because they're giving you attention, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get attention.
Right.
And so in the very end, often if it keeps disagreeing, the outside world starts to not believe them. They get weaker and weaker. And some, I'd say many, will commit suicide, because really it's the ego that's dying. And then the body or the organism thinks, I'm dying, because it's total association with the ego, not the soul.
Not the soul.
And that's what happens. And so energy gets drained out. And I think we're in the very beginning of seeing this happening, because there are a lot of people in the country and world who have been heavily abused, abandoned, not loved in their childhoods, and have been doing the best they can to try to be strong and powerful and make everything work. And yet what happens then is that there gets to be this great polarization. There's me and them. There's no us. It's only the people who are loyal to you and agree with you that could be considered a copy of us. You know, it's not really the real connection. You're still in charge with the narcissism. And so there's a lot of people who have been dominators and they have a shadow victim side, or they're victims and they have a shadow dominating side. And that's what's called passive aggressive, where they act like, I'm not doing anything, but you better do what I'm wanting, or I'll kill myself, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, and you can, they manipulate through the back door. So that is coming up now. It's one of the patterns of the subconscious mind that is surfacing at this time because of the frequency on the planet is rising so fast, so high. And it's since last December is when I first started noticing these waves coming and coming that are, it's like, oh, they'd come in and I'd get like this and I think something was wrong. And then I'd like have to take a nap. And then my body knows how to adjust to those frequencies if I just get my brain out of the way. So get quiet, let the body adjust. And now I'm okay again until the next wave comes in. But those waves, if you allow them to come through you, bring revelation. They bring new understanding of how life works and how energy works and how you can let go of things. You don't have to hold all this stuff to yourself, all the bad stuff. It's not with you now. It can dissolve. And so people who can work with the waves are getting very, very clear and loving. The people who are scared by this, that it's threatening their sense of definition of their structure, are really scared. And it's very polarizing now in a way because many people are opening up and, they had to make fun of it, call it woke, but it's, it's opening up and softening and people are coming together. It's really the age of Aquarius is just going to really be starting on November 19th of 2024. We're in a weird astrological period right now, where there's been a backwards motion into Capricorn, which is government systems and usually roto-rootering out of the negative sections, parts of government. So I forget when that started, a month or two back, and it will finish, but it's the elections during that period.
Right.
But it's very interesting to watch how the flow knows what it's doing somehow. But I'm wandering here, but honestly, I think that all of that fear level stuff that's been suppressed in the subconscious mind, we don't want to look at that, but it's running us, is surfacing into the conscious mind. And this is where all the resistance and the violence and the people who are anti-government and let's get rid of the Constitution because we don't need that structure. We want to be the bosses.
Right.
But we're not sure because we're really victims. So we need a big daddy or mommy to run the show for us who knows what they're doing. And then we'll just give over power to them. And that's the victim side of narcissism. So we are dealing with it. And another greater force is rising around that. You're calling it dark energy, but it's dark only because it's low frequency. Mm-hmm. It's a fear-based frequency of perception, of worldview. But around it and coming up through it is this Aquarian stuff, which is a very high frequency. And the energy on the planet is very high frequency. So we're now getting a chance to shift into that new wave of, let's say, politics. But what if we took the labels off of Democrat, Republican, Independent, all that, and it was just people choosing what felt right, really good and healthy for them. and let them vote any way they want. But and maybe none of the candidates have parties. You know, it would be a different situation.
It would be a much different situation.
And it would be like you and the guys in the bar talking about, you know, and just being friends, all different cultures coming together. And I think that's what's coming for us in the United States and in the world. But we have to do it first, and then we can be the example of it for other countries who can come together nationally.
Right. And that's exactly what they were saying, Miss Penny, was like, you guys, you know, I could see him at the table. He would say, you guys are like a pea in the world, like you guys are the babies. And yet you're trying to tell the world how to be. And like you're the youngest nation in the world. Like there's thousands and thousands of years of history right here in Switzerland.
Yeah.
We had to evolve. And they would lay into the structure of all of the wars that Switzerland has gone through just to form into who it is.
Right. Right.
You know, and it's like, when you think about that, you're like, whoa, you know, because we're 400 years. We haven't even been here for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
We're still forming. We're still trying to protect our Constitution from invasion. You know, the invasion of the American Revolution never stopped. Like I tell the people, do you think Britain just went home and said, okay, we're not going to, never mind, just let them be? You know, when you invade a nation, you invade a nation. You don't stop until you do, or you're depleted. You just find different ways of doing it. So it's knowing that we are still a nation of people that are fighting for its sovereignty, for its right to be free, you know, for all of the things that the forefathers came here to form for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're still a human being. And it's like I tell people, it doesn't matter who, like, I hear it so much on TikTok, and it's so depressing for me to hear how a human being will say, we need Donald Trump to save our lives. We need Kamala Harris to save our lives. And it's like, you don't need anybody but yourself. It doesn't matter. You've never even seen this person a day in your life, never met them. How do you give this person so much weight and influence over your own life?
Well, you're about a light year ahead of a lot of us, you know, but I think that we're evolving towards something like that, where we will be enlightened people running an enlightened country, or, you know, connecting with enlightened other countries. That's coming. I know it is. At this point, I think that I go back to the founding fathers, and I keep thinking, like, I'm in the room with them and all those meetings they had, and all the different kind of people. They had the same kind of people then that we have now. They have enlightened old souls in there, like Benjamin Franklin and so forth, that were really wise, had good ideas, had a blend between humanitarian and a good, what would the, you know, here's the inner structure of the inner blueprint of humanity, and how do we get along? And then here, what kind of outer structure could materialize out of that inner blueprint that would be the most accurate duplication of what's really true? And I think democracy is good in that regard. But I think I can imagine hearing all the arguments that those guys had, you know, like, well, but with this, you know, and it's the same thing going on now. But they did it. And I'm so proud of them that they got it done, and they made something that has lasted a long time. But there's a turning point now, which there may need to be revisions to that Constitution, not throw it out, but improve it, you know, because we're changing into better people. And I think what's happening now is a temporary catalytic turning point, where the people who are so contracted into it has to just be one way need to learn that America is an experiment on flexibility. Somebody on the news the other day said it was like messy. Mm-hmm. Democracy was messy. And I said, yes, because we try new things. We allow lots of people. It's not like some places in Europe where it's really been the same way,
Right.
which is a wonderful structure, and it is wise, but it's not changeable like we are. So innovation will come from us, new ideas, new connection with the non-physical realms. But the actual discipline of getting these things done and made into great forms, look at Germany, look at Switzerland, look at how much craft, and Japan.
Right.
They have the same craft consciousness. So many, where tradition has been respected, craftsmanship has been respected. But I do feel it's such a powerful time to choose your own vibration. Like, how do you want to feel? How do you want your future to feel? What's the kind of, sphere that you want to live within? And mine is joyful and creative and helpful to others and kind and, and truthful, whatever. But what you have to do is choose that now.
Right.
And be it now, and fill your sphere, your reality, with that vibe. And if you stray back to an old way, then catch yourself, come back to the way you choose to feel, because this is your future. The present is your future, which is a weird thing to think about. But if you keep wishy-washy, you're going to have that kind of future too.
Yes. And circling back to the forefathers, and that is where I got my respect for what these individuals done, because these individuals were visionaries, right? And I think that's a lot of the problem today is we don't have visionaries. We have plagiarizers. We just have individuals who are just taking from things that have already occurred and trying to implement it into their own, and I don't think, does the Constitution need revision? Absolutely, to mark with the times of today, because as a growing nation, our Constitution is supposed to grow with us, right?
Yeah.
But that has to be formed from visionaries who had the same vision as the forefathers and understand the economical pressure that they were under and what they were escaping from. Like, these were treasonous men. They abandoned their nation to come here because these individuals understood that this was the last land on earth that was not under any kind of regime, government control, monarch. And that was the quote unquote last frontier, the final frontier.
It's true. And, it's true that the first steps of a journey are symbolic of the rest of the journey. So what they did of looking for freedom in that way, and then expanding on what freedom means and for whom, and can you trust people when they're free? Well, it doesn't look like it if you're in a controlling mindset, because then they just do anything.
Right.
I remember hearing some people who were into the book banning some years ago who wanted to monitor the libraries and say, well, we wouldn't want our kids to have an open mind because you never know what would go in there.
Right.
Right. So we got to control that. But what about kids making up their own minds about right and wrong and what they felt was real and not real? If you don't trust a person with freedom, that's the main thing.
Which is what we hear coming now from the left, and Kamala Harris was just quoted for saying about how social media gives millions of people that individuality, and it needs to be controlled. It needs to be monitored. It needs to be, so what we're hearing from the left is they want to control us. And Kamala Harris's father was a Marxist economist. This is what he taught.
Are you sure about all this? Because
I'm 100% positive, and I wouldn't speak it unless I've actually researched it myself. So it's knowing that there is a Marxist history through her father, the professor, that is, of course, going to come into her mindset. And we hear that through her speech when she's talking about equality. She wants everything equal. She wants all people to be equal. And we're not equal. We're individual human beings, right? Who have our own consciousness, our own thought. And
Right. But
we're
I think you're
supposed to,
misinterpreting that, Thomas, because I think where we're equal is on the fact that we're souls. And we have many levels of, or let's call it proportions of love to fear or fear to love. Some of us have cleared a lot of fear and we're more loving. Others have had more fear and they're living in it and holding that as the reality. But underneath that, at the core, we're all souls that belong to a group, huge, one big soul. We're
right.
coming out of the same pool.
But
And
are
in that
those,
level, we are equal. And
but
where we
are
meet,
those souls equal? Are all
yes,
those
yes, it's
souls
all
equal?
coming from the same pool of consciousness. Its souls are not unequal. They're fine up here where they live, but as you come down through the filter into the physical 3D dimension and you get separation, you get fear. And then you make rules in the left brain about, well, if this is a place of fear, then I have to be this way to protect myself. But if you go more and clear the fear and you are bringing love, the love of the great soul and spiritual consciousness into your body, you don't operate that way. And then you don't fall into those places where you need protection or you need violence or you need things to have your own self feel safe. So, what I sense about equality is that it's the freedoms that we are allowed that allow the soul to come in more and to displace fears. And the more we can clear the fears in ourselves, the more we love each other and collaborate with each other, respect each other. Now, then, if we can get that kind of,
As a human being.
as a human being and
Right.
as a collective in a country or a state, because I think that a lot of what she's saying is the first little baby step into the idea that if we have our freedoms to control our own bodies and women can be just as fine, their souls, just like men. In fact, we've been men in our past lives and you've been women in your past life. We know it all. We're universal. That if we can have those freedoms, we will become geniuses in a way. And we will be highly innovative. We will work together. We will be like puzzle pieces fitting. You're good at this. I'm good at this. That guy's good at that. And we need each other. And I'll do something that'll help them. And they'll do something that'll help others. And it's all interconnected in this big mutual support system. So the problem comes with the mind wanting to stop the explanation at an early stage and say, well, that's not right. Keep going, open it up and start to see where, because if we're all innovative and we have the right to start our own companies or be our own bosses and make our own realities based on our ideas that are unique to us, well, then we become complementary in business. We get more money. So here we go into economics, because then as you get more money by doing your own thing, you share it with others, you invest it, you make more money, you can contribute more money philanthropically. And then things start to expand. And it's not about greed then, because greed is about narcissism, right? When you get clear of the fear, you work with gratitude and generosity. And those are two states, because I've been writing a book on money, which is really interesting to bring spirituality into it.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
That they are two states of being that really work together. They complement each other and feed each other. But they are also very pure states of being that allow the soul to come through. When you're in a true state of gratitude, the soul is right there. And all that higher wisdom of the divinity of the universal mind is there with you. And so generosity too, when you're truly generous and not doing it for an ultimate reason, you're still in that purity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with everything you say, of course. And yes, the soul would be able to flourish through a free state of consciousness, but I don't think that is what we have. And I don't think that that is what the goal of these elites want us to have. You know, even though they want to give us the perception of, yes, that will be equal and free, but yet who is the overseer of that? Who is the one to say, okay, no, you're not being free right now, you're being this way, or however, right? So it's I think the euphoric state is, yes, a land where everybody is just free consciousness, pure of thought, right? Because again, you're what you have taught me is that we are the creator of all things, you know, through our energy, through our thoughts, you know, and this is what I teach through my life coaching and such, is if you want to know the state of being that you're in, all you have to do is look at the environment around you that you've created,
Yeah.
because that is going to show you what your inside brain looks like, you know. And so you have taught me this, Miss Penny. These are your teachings to me, and what I've evolved from and what I've related to through my past histories. And that's why I'm so connected to you, because everything that you have taught me is true from my own experiences.
Right.
Right? I've experienced these things that you have taught me, and I know them to be factually true only for me.
Right. Right.
Only
And
for me.
everybody has to do that. Talk about leadership. Who's going to be in charge of the whole thing? Well, you are, I am, each person is in charge really of the whole thing. Now, that's a hard concept to understand, but there's a both and situation.
Mhm.
As we grow and evolve and increase in our frequency of consciousness, and everybody wants more. We don't really want less of the good stuff. We really want more of what is good. And that's why I think what's interesting is this joy vibe that's coming in on the Kamala Harris stuff, is that a joyful warrior, and then the other side's going to say, well, that's stupid. That's just silly. That's, romantic. But the truth is, if you really feel into joy, it's what motivates innovation, creativity, generosity, and gratitude, and all those states that lend themselves toward evolution and growth, and rapid growth also, that's digestible. Because sometimes if things are too fast, you can't quite integrate them. But when you're in joy, it all makes sense. That's what I wrote about a lot in my book, Transparency, which is about this whole shift. So when you listen to things from your left brain, which is the old brain that has all the rules, a lot of the new stuff seems stupid and silly. If you get really quiet and open your right brain, which is kind of the doorway to the soul or the heart, you know, it all is so profound and makes so much sense. And then if you go into that state of being and track it and see how it wants to expand, you see how it improves the lives of everyone. And then you get like a flat structure, not a hierarchical structure where somebody's not at the top telling us what to do like a dictator. We get the people
Well,
coming together.
I mean, again, that's the euphoric state. That that's the natural order of things.
Yes.
When you know your place, know who you are, know what your function is, right? The world is going to act according to you because you are the creator,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
So it's, but let me ask this: what creates narcissism in the sense as is it hierarchy?
It's not higher spiritual consciousness at the thing. And what causes narcissism is the experience of abandonment, which comes out of the perception. This is, it's going to be a little abstract, but when we come into 3D reality, we fragment time, space, matter.
Mm-hmm.
When we leave it, we go back into unity consciousness. Everything's all one. The group mind, all that. Within it are the little individuals that we've been in all of our lifetimes, all the particles. But the main thing is we become the whole thing. Now, when we come into the world, it fragments and you have polarity. You have an inside world and an outside world. You have a me. We learn to think of ourselves as an I, an individual, and the them and the outside, the other. And when you're a baby and you need your parent because you don't know they're an other yet, they think their parents are part of them.
Right.
And then when one of the parents or some situation breaks that connection and leaves, there's this feeling of confoundment, like, huh? Like, what just happened? And oh my God, I could die. It's terror, really, at the core. And then as the left brain gets stronger, it says, well, I better do it then. I better be in control because the one who was supposed to protect me or help me isn't there for me. So you get disconnected from the outside world, from trusting other people, from wanting to love or like people too much because they might leave too. And then even from the divine, it's like you can't trust God. You can't trust that there's a divine place of the soul that you're part of, that you've never left, really. And then you get connected from your own self and your own heart. And that is how it starts because of the functioning of the dimensions here in three-dimensional life. And the way you get out of it is to go back to your heart and feel how interconnected things are, how you are like me, Thomas. We are in I could have gone through the exact same stuff you've been through and vice versa. I'm sure you were a monk and some high-level monk somewhere. I can feel that, and you have to see the self in others, which always reminds me of that Mayan. The Mayan had a greeting. I forget the actual Mayan words, but it's you are another myself.
And I do believe that. I believe, wouldn't some souls, like how they say you're a new soul, I'm an old soul, or as you may have mentioned, you feel like I may have been a monk in some past life where maybe somebody hasn't had that experience yet, or so wouldn't that make the souls in equal there?
No, because everybody's done something. But there are souls, I think, who have a purpose, that come in with a purpose. Others just come to experience what is it like when things get physical. How do we create in a physical way now? And we get an idea and bring it into form, and then it goes away, go back into, energy again. And what is this place? And a lot of us have been fascinated with coming in and playing in this kind of sandbox, but with the risks of getting this extra baggage that is, holding us back and painful, suffering, all that, and then getting ourselves out of it again, getting stuck and then getting out. So I don't see souls as unequal, but Earth experience, we may have had a little more Earth experience or a little less Earth experience. And it just, I think, adds to our wisdom level, but it's not linear. It's not about how many times. It's not about all the things you've been, how many lifetimes, how many years. It's not about that. It's about how pure you can bring the soul into the three-dimensional realm.
Yeah, I think everything boils down to our choices.
That's right.
And I think the growth grows from that. If we continue to come back and continue to make the same choices, that soul doesn't grow.
The soul doesn't need to grow, but the experience of the earthly completion of being 100% soul in the physical world and transforming the physical dimension. That is what it's all about. If enough people can come in, clear themselves, become merged here as a humanity, then the whole physical plane can shift. And that, I think, is what is coming down the road.
That
But
I believe 1,000,000% is,
mm,
and I tell everybody that just be a good person. You want things to change, be a good person.
that's
Stop
it.
lying, stop cheating, stop doing this, stop doing that, stop doing the things that you know it in your head when you're
Yeah.
doing wrong. Hear it telling you this isn't.
And then I thought, I could just have more money and be generous. Why don't I just do that and let that be my pleasure? Not like having to check on everything that I spend without being frivolous. There's a good balance there. And that's one thing. Another is judgment. When you're judgmental about somebody that and you feel that coming up and you're like, it contracts you. And then I can feel that now when I even just, on the edge of starting to do it. Then I go, I don't want to feel that way. I can let go
Right.
and be happy, be in your joy, and understand that other person, see through into their vulnerability, into who they really are. It only takes a minute to see the heart of someone. And then that takes it to a higher frequency. And then you change your thoughts and you change your emotional responses. And then you're coming in more. The soul is taking over your personality consciously. That's what's enlightenment. That's I think what enlightenment is anyway.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would
And
definitely
it's
agree.
doable.
It's definitely a doable, and it's achievable. And I think that's the story of Jesus. I think that was the whole message of what Jesus was trying to portray. And it was not don't worship me, right? But when I say that I am the way, I'm showing you that you can do what I'm doing. I'm showing it to you
Yes.
because you're ignorant and you have to see it in order to believe it because you have no dang faith. So I'm
Right.
showing you right now what you can do. But yet the people still worshiped him and
Yeah.
still doubted themselves. And I think metaphorically, that's the story of life, the battle of ego versus consciousness that we all go through.
That we want the hero, we want the leader, we want the one who knows because we think we don't know, or we've been told that we don't know. But each person knows directly. That's why I don't like religion so much as I do like mysticism. And every religion has its mystics who
Yes.
don't need a priesthood. They go directly into the divine, and they are often prophets, or, they have gifts, many gifts of spirit.
Speaking of mysticism, I'm getting ready to get into. I'm hyping myself up for the Zohar.
Mm-hmm.
It's thousands of years old, and it gets into exactly what we're talking about: the energy levels, the mysticism of life. So it's a 6 book series. It's any of these books that are thousands of years old.
Yeah.
I really wanted to dive into. But let's expound upon what you had said a little bit. Speaking on judgments,
Mm.
right? Because we're in a time where judgments are being made, and we have this natural ability to judge, and the Bible teaches us to love discerningly, which means to judge who you love. To make sure that you're loving the right person.
Right. And they
So
say don't throw pearls before swine, you know, and I think the judgment thing is about discernment. Judgment has a negative connotation in a way, but in the old days, in the truth about judgment, it was like to look at what's really what could someone do to rectify the problem they're having with committing a crime. Why? Let's have them do this kind of activity to balance that out. But now it's all about good and bad. But I I don't know. I guess that I think that as I gain in frequency and my consciousness increases, I have much more understanding of all the levels that other people are at. And I don't have a judgment about it. But I also understand that if I'm talking to someone at a very low level, I can adapt myself to understand reality there because I've been there. It's still in me. but it's not where I prefer to live all the time. And so I have friends at different levels, and I speak to them at different levels. But I know there was a quote from Buddhism once that said it's very hard to find spiritual friends. And when you do, treasure them, because then you can talk about ideas, and like one word or one phrase can tweak your mind, and you open up to a whole new insight. It's not, you don't have to go live it out. It's like ding. And it's so valuable. I think at this time, as people are becoming more conscious, that they find community or groups that they can talk to that have the similar way of thinking or feeling. Because otherwise, you're just dragged down too much.
Right.
And it's not a judgment. It's a practicality. It's physics, and yet you can move through the vibrations. It's easy to modulate yourself and be able to talk at different levels or feel for people and understand them without feeling sorry for people or anything like that. That's not it. It's different ways the mind is structured, but the heart goes through and cuts through all of it,
Yeah, the heart can get in the way of many things, and so can the brain. And
the
and I
brain can
think
get definitely in the way. It
and I
can make
think that's
close.
well, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's what our mission is, to correlate the two.
So
Really,
they are attuned. And as I was told, I told you last year I had open heart surgery out of the
yes, you
blue,
do.
right? And so I've been recovering from that. It's going to go downhill from here. And I'm saying no. And then I was meditating, and my inner voice, whatever that is, it said to me, "You are your heart. And the heart is like a doorway. You came into this life through the heart, and you will leave through the heart. But you are your heart." And I said, "Well, then why did it get weak?" And it said, "It's not weak, but it has about 30% sludge in it." And I said, "What's that? What's sludge?" And they said, "It's the residue of many, many lifetimes of being in the physical plane and seeing pain and suffering, trying to help people. They don't want the help. Then people kill you, and you've got persecution, you've got all this weight on you, and carefulness and hiding and all that, and the part of your consciousness believes is real, but it's not really real now. So just relax and be that state that you want to be in. Choose your reality. Be who you are." Because I felt I'm strong. Like I can live to an old age with, and so what was funny was I had another, what do they call it? A ultrasound of the heart. I forget what they call that. And they have a thing called the ejection fraction, which is the amount of blood that pumps out of the heart to go to the organs.
My father's going through this right now.
Okay. So normal is 50 to 70%, at least in there. Mine was about 45. And then after I had the surgery, I had a backflow where it went down to 15%. And I was passing out. I could barely walk from the car into a store.
It's what my father's going through.
And it's really scary. So I started working on meditating and seeing my heart filling up with little speckles of starlight and bright, and bringing diamond light into my body, and breathing pure air and drinking more good water, and just whatever positive energy. And I'm still having dizzy spells, but they did new testing, and my ejection fraction is up to 45%, back almost to where it was.
Naturally.
Yes. Well, I take my medicine, but I've been
but just through your
on both
meditation,
levels, the physical and the non-physical, and just attitude, just sense of spirit inhabiting you because I am my heart. So I want to get rid of the sludge, and that's what I'm working on now. And, I can imagine we all have this. The hearts are like, we're trying to work really well, and we've got all this every extra weight on us. And this thing, it's hard to get through the beliefs we have about this world. But it's a magical thing, really.
Absolutely. And for the listener, you may have heard Miss Penney talk about diamond light. And this was introduced to me in her book Frequency. And of course, you know, those who may or may not know, before I left incarceration, I had to have a complete knee restoration. MCL, ACL, and my patella playing football. And so understanding what the diamond light is, which I'll let you, of course, explain in detail what that is. Yes, I would lay in my bed and I would meditate and I would see my body, the inner of my body and my brain. And I would see that light and I would direct that light to my knee, and I would just put all of good vibes, good nature, heart, love, everything into that light that was in my knee. And I could see it in my consciousness, and I can't tell you, I have full functionality of my knee, and like you said, it was the spiritual and of course the physical rehab. But it was the belief in knowing, of course, the doctors told me I would only have like 60% functionality. I wouldn't be able to flex. I would never be able to pull my leg back to my back again, and all of these things. I'd never listened to none of that because, again, that's only their opinions. They don't know my body. They don't know my spirit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is what I carried through. And of course, I have full functionality. I can stretch. It's like I never damaged my knee. I have some physical atrophy in the muscle and things of that knee, but that's just the natural reaction to the injury that occurred.
Yeah.
But it's knowing that diamond light healed me. I still use that to this day to traverse that inner body of mine, because what we were talking about with the heart being connected to it's all living cells. It's all living cells, and you as the spirit, the soul, is the driver of all these cells. All of these cells are functioning and doing what they're supposed to do for you, the consciousness.
That's right. Yeah. And the diamond light, really, to me, it is the vibration of the soul. It's so clear and glossy, and it holds no blockages, nothing. It's just purity, really. And I always picture it like I have an energy body made of that diamond light standing behind me. And I invite her in, and that body just slides into me. And then she has a diamond light brain, a diamond light eyes, a diamond light heart, diamond light, every organ, every blood cell, everything, all the cells, diamond light particles. And I invite it in and ask it, just take your place and go into the physical part. And then let's adjust the frequency and just do it. And I turn it over to you. And I let it just work on me. And then as I'm becoming more, my heart is now a diamond light heart. It's like clear. And I feel that. I feel it clear everywhere. And even the space around me, I start to let it radiate out around me and clear up any residues that are out there, other people's negative energy or whatever. And I sit in it. And then it's almost like it starts to vibrate more. You just, and it works on your emotions, and then it works on your thoughts. Like you have dark thoughts. We talk about dark energy. Well, the diamond light goes in, it melts it away, clears it out. Less like, fog and, or a milk, tap water, to becoming clear. And so I feel like that is a way that I can symbolically occupy my personality self with me, the soul. I'm coming in now, and I'm running this show along with all my friends, all my other souls who have the same knowledge, and they're going to come through and help this be a maximum efficient vehicle for me. and it has a name. My personality has a name, but I'm me.
Right.
The
And you're
identity.
conscious of that.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have our names and our quote identities. But when you start to become more and more of the soul, you don't care that much about your identity. And so ego, you don't, it almost gets in the way of you
It
being
does.
yourself,
Yes. It and frustration can build in that as well.
Yeah.
So it's regulating that as well as knowing as understanding. Let's talk on the Bible for 1 second. In the Bible, in the story of the Bible where Satan was cast down to earth, right, and given domain over all the physical realm of earth, right, and of course we know that the devil's main objective is to get a person to denounce God, to denounce God and be at the will of the devil. So how I reach people is on that spiritual level, is just that story right there, and getting them to understand that the devil has dominion over all physical things. And what are physical things? Well, it all physical things root from the ego, because the ego is the root to all physicalness, in my opinion, because the ego is what controls the material aspect of you. The I wants, the I see this, the consciousness is what builds the vision. And if you don't have that filter, that purifier in that consciousness, then your ego is going to run amok. But if your thoughts are coming through that purifier, it's going to keep that ego in check. But the ego is what builds, the ego is what motivates you as the person to do, right?
Yeah.
And if that ego is not in check, then you are narcissistic, greed,
Mm.
everything is about feeding that
Because,
ego.
yeah. And it needs, if you equate the ego with the left brain, which is what I do, the left brain's function is to, well, Terence McKenna said it really well. He said the function of the left brain is to interrupt the right brain, because the right brain is everything all at once. It's immersion into the field. It's all knowing all at once. And it's the doorway to intuition and direct knowing and all of that. But you can't know who you are unless you interrupt it and pick a point and then, oh, I'm that. And the left brain wants to say, I am something. It wants to identify with something. So I'm a girl, I'm a this, I'm blonde, and I have all these things that I've associated with, or I'm good at my job, or I'm not good at my job, or all that stuff. And then the ego, to me, is that kind of identity where you only identify with all these things that you've associated with.
Right.
And it becomes locked in. The more you repeat it to yourself, I am this, I am this, I'm not this, I'm this, I'm this. It gets like a little hard ball, and very little freedom. And that's why sometimes tradition is good, but it's not good because it gets you locked into a certain way of thinking, being, and doing. Whereas the messiness of our country helps us open up and soften up to fluidity, where we can allow intuition to come in with new insights and new, help us evolve. So it's quite helpful that way. So I feel like the ego gets balanced out by opening intuition. Don't try to get rid of it, but balance it in your brain with the different kinds of consciousness that we have available to us. And when you become intuitive and work with, the higher realms, really, the accessing of the higher realms, which are not just higher, they're right here. We're in it. And so then that helps it gives the ego or the left brain something more to work with, more experience, more ideas, more things that it can put into it's like, let me out of here. Like, I'm sick of all this structure. Sometimes I want to go into the freedom of the flow and be. And then
Right.
I can rest and come back to my left brain and do more creating and bringing things, like you said, into form.
Mm-hmm.
The left
And
brain defines, and it brings ideas out of the higher realms down and defines them, and then it gets motivated and we make it happen.
And that is the depiction as to why we are creators.
Yeah.
Right. And it's getting people to understand, because as we sum this up, you know, we've gone over an hour, but to run this to an end, it's getting the person to understand the errors of their own ways. Right. And for me, Miss Penny, of course, you know, I was a bad person by societal means. I don't think I was a bad person spiritually. I was just misunderstood physically in this societal realm, and I had no spiritual leadership guide to show me the errors of my ways. So I was living a complete egoic, narcissistic life because I felt life was unfair. Wasn't fair that all these other people had things and I didn't have them. So I'm going to go sell drugs to get them, and I'm going to hurt people to get them.
Yeah.
And I got into that vicious cycle. And then when I got arrested by the police, it's, oh, they don't understand what I'm going through. It's not fair. And now the government is treating me this way, and they don't, you know, and I got into that victim mindset, and that carried me through most of my life.
Yeah.
Right. But it was me through your book, through other but in order for your book to come to me, I had to manifest it through my thoughts of wanting to change.
I see.
Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And all of that started when I recognized within myself that I was creating all of this by just victim blaming. And it was that consciousness within me that finally broke that victim wall that said, no, Thomas, it wasn't those people. It was you. You chose to go out and do this. You chose to see things this way. You chose not to find a different way.
Well, let me say something right there before, because what I get is that you are, as we all are, fairly advanced souls. We know a lot of things, but you chose to come in and have this experience and actually live it and know every step of it until a certain point. And sometimes we don't know when they happen or why they happen at a certain point where suddenly you come in and you get through to yourself. So you were talking to your personality self at that point, getting that one little wedged thing into your mind, like I call it a chiropractic adjustment from on high, you know, that, oh, that was your revelation. I'm doing this by the way I'm thinking. And then as that opening happens, now new things can fall in. You've opened your right brain. But we all are like that. We all have, I had a whole series of relationships with narcissists, and I knew it. And I thought, well, why am I doing this and keeping on? And I said to myself, because I'm researching something. That's what I said. I'm learning something.
Right.
And then I did, and then it was just done.
It was just done.
And I didn't do it again. You know, but we do that. So I would give you credit for your experiment and being able, because of that experience you've had, to be able to talk to all kinds of people.
Oh my goodness, Miss Penny.
And so credible.
And the love.
Lived it.
The love that I have for myself and the confidence that I have in myself, all because when that revelation occurred within me, I instantly forgave myself for everything that I was doing, and instantly understood that I had to do all of those things in order to come into the revelation of what I came into today.
Yeah.
And that is what allowed me to accept that lower frequency of mine.
Yeah.
Right.
You
because
visited that lower frequency realm for a while and did it.
And learned what I learned from it. And once I felt that I learned everything that I could from this low frequency, I decided that this is not where I'm supposed to be at. And I took it, and it catapulted me into where I'm at today. And so with all of that being said, I think that this is an easy thing. and it's not. And when I try to reach individuals, because of these classes that I have on accountability, the first thing I tell people is in order for you to come into this class, you have to accept the fact that everything is your fault. Oh, well, well, there was this one time. And I let them go through that. And then I explain to them, but you mean to tell me out of this whole time that this was going on, not once did you ever tell yourself to separate or to change or to make a different decision? Well, yeah, I knew that I could have just walked. Okay. So how is this not your fault? And I always bring it back to them to say, they admit to the fact, okay, I can see what you're saying now. But yet they still, once they get that revelation, they'll walk out of the room and go right back into victim blaming, becoming the victim. And so how does that individual, because I would love for humanity to get to the place that we've expounded on for the last hour, just to understanding, having faith in the system, seeing the natural order of how animals work and function and coexist on Earth for way before we came here, trusting that system and understanding that if you just come in and be the pure human being, the good conscious person, leading with love, leading with generosity, leading with humility and humanity, that this world will be the perfect place. We won't need government because there won't be no crime. We won't need police beating our door down because we won't be murdering people.
Right.
Sure, death will occur and things will occur because that's a natural order of things, but it'll all be understood.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's a huge question, but I think it starts, you're doing a good thing by helping people confront the thing that they think is real. Like even using the word fault. That's one of the charged words. Like it's a polarizing word. That's what I mean. But it's not bad to use it because it brings up the polarization that they're living with. Right. But there are other ways to talk about. So fault, what does it mean really? It is the fact that you see the world as us and them, and that they can do something to you or you have to do something to them or whatever. Whereas everybody's fine the way they are, and you can make your own choices. It's almost like you need to show people a certain kind of geometry, inner geometry, that they can feel the forces and the energy. That's why sometimes it is good to do the examples with animals like dogs and how they work with each other and so forth. But I think that people have to get a felt sense somehow often of how it is to feel one way and how it is to feel the new way, which I go over in frequency, right? I talk about your home frequency.
That's
and
right.
What happens when you're the soul in the body, as opposed to just feeling alone and separated, and how to move between those two states.
Move between them and stay in with your home frequency as long.
Feel the bad one as like, ooh, I hate this. When you get the best possible scenario, how it would actually feel in your body and how free and loose you'd be. And then you set that aside and you go back to the worst possible scenario where everything's working against you and all this happens and you're going to the bottom of the bucket, and then I have them go back and forth. Put that one on hold, go back to the good one. Great. Go back to the bad one. Oh, I don't want to go back to the bad one. Okay, which one do you choose? And then they have a felt sense of it and they can say, I don't want that other one again. Okay, well then when you start to dip back into it, ask yourself to notice. And you will make an agreement with your own mind. Let me notice when I start to backslide.
Yes.
And then stop right there. Don't keep on going. Get back on center. Recreate the reality you want. And of course, you'll rock back to it many times, but it's about giving your body a new set of instructions.
Right. Shocking the system, if you will.
In a will, yeah. But your body is operating out of the old set of instructions where nobody loved you and you couldn't do it. And so you were alone and blah, 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 blah. And now you come back and say, wait a minute, I understand these people. They know me. I can change the way I behave in the world. And then
Right.
it works. And you go, oh, see, it worked. Validation.
That's right. And once you have that validation becomes knowledge, right? And once you have knowledge erases fear.
That's
right? Because fear is we only fear what we don't know.
That's
and
right.
Once you become knowledgeable, you become confident, and you no longer have fears. So that's how that cycle works. You know,
and if
so
it's only personality to personality, you don't know the soul. And so you get into all that oppositional stuff of us versus them. As soon as you start to bring the soul and the heart consciousness into it, and you see through the outer behaviors into first the vulnerabilities of that person, what's going on in there that makes them feel vulnerable,
right,
immediately you can go into who they really are. It's that quick.
yes.
And I practiced that for many years when I was first opening up into my work, is just look through the surface, feel how, where they have their vulnerability, and go right on in and see who they really are, and then relate to that being.
And that's it. And a lot of times that vulnerability is so surface level, and it's like just dip down a little bit, and you'll see that everything that you have felt about yourself or saw about yourself is just surface level perceptions from other people.
Right. And it's not actually true.
It's not actually true. It's like when somebody tells you, oh, well, you're not perfect. Well, that's your perception, but where are you forming your perception of perfection from?
Yeah.
Because the way that I look at it, I am perfect. And it's not in an egoic way. It's understanding that as a soul, as a spirit on earth, there's no other one like me on this planet that walks, talks, thinks like I do.
Yeah.
And I am my own creator. Nobody can create like I can. Nobody can create like you can. You are your own creator. And that is what makes you perfect, because there is nothing else like you.
Right. And that's the whole point of why we're here, Thomas,
And when they hear that, Miss Penney, it changes their whole perception on things. Because the first thing I tell them is, well, you're a creator. Oh, I'm not a creator. What do you mean you're not a creator? You've never thought about anything and brought it into production? You've created. You're a creator. It's just, what are you creating? How are you creating? And at what level, what vibration are you creating that at? Mm-hmm. Because that's going to resonate. Once you create something, it's there, and it's going to resonate with people all over.
Yeah.
Your energy, going back to the table that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's knowing that that is what makes us so divine and so perfect, because nothing else does that other than us.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the whole key, really. And by doing the creation of yourself as a especially more positive vibe, it does radiate. I mean, it's not even linear. It's just kind of like light switches going on. People feel each other and they go, well, I could do that too. And it's not a linear process where you have to cross time and space. It's all interconnected already. And just like you got your revelation out of nowhere after all of this that you went through, that's what happens to people. The more you add the light into the field, the more it gives people revelations.
That's
and you're
right.
helping that to happen.
Amen. Great. That beautifully said. And if anybody wants to test that theory, to know that good is always going to override bad, all you have to do is simply just be nice to a mad person. You know how hard it is to stay angry at somebody who's being nice to you? You can't do it. You could start out, oh, you're that right. But when that person is, oh, but I'm sorry. And I really didn't mean to hurt you. And I love you. When you automatically come down from that anger. You can't stay angry because you feel that love resonating. and you start to understand, and that is exactly what this whole conversation has been about, is really, even when it's directed to self, when you hate yourself, you hate your features, you hate things about you, you hate your decisions, stop all of that immediately and understand that that is what makes you beautiful. Your clumsiness is what makes you beautiful. Maybe you were supposed to be clumsy in that moment. Maybe that thing was
Yeah.
supposed to break in that moment to bring other things in. And so it's knowing that when these things occur, it's not to be upset. It's just meant to be. It's
Well,
just
it's
the energy.
also for your own self-entertainment, is what I say. It's like it's a very high state when you, oh, look, I just was clumsy and I hadn't even know that I could be clumsy, and that was lightened up the situation around me or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
So stop beating yourself up. Stop looking at yourself derogatory. Stop. Most importantly, stop using negative words. Stop vocalizing negativity about yourself, because your voice creates vibrations and your body feels those vibrations, and your body is going to react to what you're telling it is, because it reacts to you. You're the conscious being that the body responds to.
Yeah.
So stop speaking bad about yourself. Stop looking at yourself bad. Start picking yourself up. I firmly believe in self affirmations. I
Mm-hmm.
do it. I tell myself I'm beautiful. I tell myself I'm strong. I tell myself these things. And society has taught us that that is called, uh, what's it called when we speak good about ourselves?
Yeah.
We're,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's ego, but it's like too much pride or something.
yeah,
But
whatever. I don't even know these words that they label it, but I know that it feels good when I can look myself in the eye, when I know that I've done something good, and give myself after. Thomas, you did a great job today. You
yeah.
really did good. Pat yourself on the back, feel good. It's not precocious. It's not none of these things. I'm not going out telling other people, I did great things today, because but it's absolutely look yourself deep in your soul, deep in your pupils, and tell yourself first that you love who you are. You've done great things today. You are a good person, and make sure that you're living those. Your thoughts are that, and everything changes. I
Yeah.
promise you. I swear it does. I'm example of it.
Very good.
To leave with this note, Miss Penny, I've done bad my whole life. This is the promise that I made to myself when you had talked about making that promise to yourself. I done bad my whole life, never gave giving good a fair shot. Never gave just being the good person 100%. And I told myself that, what, all the nursery rhymes say, if you do good, it pays off and all of this stuff. Let me just see. If I'm going to be a man of my word, let me just see if being good really pays off. Let me have faith in what life says it will be. And that means stop lying, make your words as 100% genuine as you believe that they are. Don't be manipulative. Don't steal. Don't, commit crimes against humans. Don't hurt people. Lead with love. All of these things. Let me give that 100% and see where it goes. And it's led me to forming my own nonprofit. I do homeless feedings once a month. I'm helping people off drugs. I'm helping people come out of incarceration and rebuild their lives. I'm meeting wonderful people. I've met the woman of my dreams, all from being positive, leading with love and joy, helping people, not putting myself first. All of these things have come from that. And I'm convicted now that doing good pays off.
You're a good example of it.
And I
Yeah.
appreciate that, Miss Penny. I appreciate the time of your busy schedule in life that you dedicate towards me and the show. I love having you on. It really centers me. It balances me. It brings me back into self. This is why I just reach out to you every once in a while. And hey,
Yeah,
Miss Penny,
anytime.
let's get it on, you know,
Yeah.
and I love what it produces, you know.
Well, I
So
just
thank
want
you.
to say before we quit, that my book Frequency has just come out, or by the end of this month, it's come out in a new expanded version on the 15th year anniversary of it. So it has a new greenish cover. I don't have it right here to show you, but it's got about 120 more pages in it than the classic version.
Okay.
So
I'm
you
definitely gonna
can
have to
find that
revisit
on
that.
my website.
Yep, and I'll have your website up on the
Okay,
show,
great.
and I'm definitely gonna revisit that then. Absolutely, and thank you for you being you, Miss Penny, and
Thank
just
you.
I know you've had a tough fight in life getting to where you're at. You've been through a lot of trials and tribulations, and you're such a beautiful human being because of it. And I love the fact that you blessed my show with that. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You take care. And until
I
the next
will.
time,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Stay safe.
Bye bye.